Speaking of which, let's go ahead and change channels and go into what we plan on doing for the Firefighters Family Fun and how the concerts end up being a part of that. So if we might enter into that, Sean, why don't you open that conversation up and talk about the Firefighters Family Fun with Jim, and then we could talk about the how the band. So we want to put this in the right order.
Yeah. Well, first of all, here Jim is an ex-firefighter. And Sean is, so you guys, tell them a little bit about your background.
I'll correct you a little bit there. There's no such thing as an ex-firefighter.
Well, yeah, once a firefighter, you're always a firefighter.
Your blood. It's the same as being a US Marine. You never say you're a former or an ex-Marine. They're Marines and firefighters are brothers until the day they die.
I stand corrected.
Thank you.
You're naughty.
Sean will agree with me there. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's a brotherhood and it's a dedication. Yes, I'm many years out. My career, basically I'll keep it short, but my career was cut short. I suffered one of the indignities of having incidents back in England, in London, and it cost me my career. Very sad. I was very disappointed, but I rose to the occasion, got on with life, and moved on into a different field. All that experience I gained in the fire department, it's so generative in terms of giving you aspects that you could follow. I went into property management. There's a lot of fields within property management that the fireman can actually, he can attest to being knowledgeable about, looking after properties, fire safety, etc., fire prevention. And Sean will agree with me here, it is a dedication, it isn't a job. As much as in the US, I'm not sure about the wage scales, but in England, the wage scales are pretty bad. And at the end of the day, most firefighters do a second or even a third job, which I did. And when we do something like this, I've done some fundraising in the UK. We did a classic. We converted a 14-man lifeboat into a Viking longship and rowed it 29 miles down the River Thames and courageously fought a battle on the mudflats off the edge of the Thames down by the Tower of London. Many years ago, there were bucket crews going along the banks of the Thames collecting money. You've never seen so much cash in your life collected in buckets. 29 miles of roadways plus, that was as the crow flies or the river bends. But certainly we collected an awful lot of money. And it wasn't even for an attributable factor with the fire brigade in the fire department in any way, shape or form. We did it for the blind. There's people out there that can hear, they can speak, but they can't see. So the visual effect, music is a great way that those people can communicate and can actually get pleasure from life. They can hear, they can't see. I've got a blind niece from my first marriage in the UK. She became the UK's first registered blind magistrate, and I do believe to this day she's still one of two that exist in the UK. At the end of the day, when you do something like that, very gratifying. And Sean will bear me out because I'm pretty sure he's done stuff before and he's going to continue to do stuff in the future. This venture that we're looking to do with the grand show, one of which is likely to take place at Seaside Park in Bridgeport. A great venue, very open, ideal for what we're looking to do. It's going to be a nightmare for Sean and the sound people to put it together, sound and lighting, but I feel sure it's going to be a great success. I'm proud and very, very enthusiastic about being a part of this. I would work with Sean, I will work with Wayne, I will work with Jerry or anybody else in the crowd to make this 100%. As far as I'm concerned, we're working for our brothers and our brothers are everything. That's just my take on it, Sean.
I agree with you, Jim. Like you had mentioned, firefighters do a lot of fundraising for other things. Here in the U.S., our union, the International Association for Firefighters, does a lot of fundraising nationwide for muscular dystrophy and those types of things. But this, we want to do something a little bit different. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're doing this. Modern day firefighters are exposed to many, many different things than they were in the years past. All of the furnishings in our homes have changed. There's a lot more hydrocarbons, a lot more plastics, a lot more foam, rubbers. And when these things burn, the toxins that they give off are much, much worse than in years past, where what we call legacy furniture, things were made of cotton and of natural fibers. So with that in mind, most recent studies talk about firefighters now being more susceptible to many different types of cancers. And so what we'd like to do with this project is we'd like to try and raise money for some of these firefighters and their families who have been stricken with cancer or who have passed away from cancer. I know my department, the New Britain Fire Department in Connecticut here, we recently had one of our members who came down with colorectal cancer. He was 44 years old. He had 3 kids, a wife, and he ended up succumbing to the disease. And every year we have a fundraiser for the fight against colorectal cancer and to help the family out. And, you know, Jim, when anything happens to one of our brothers, we all come together and we're always there to help them out. So we thought that it would be great if we could raise money through some of these shows to help benefit firefighters in the fight against cancer. And, you know, just briefly, some of the statistics that we have here, the different types of cancers that firefighters are susceptible to. Testicular cancer, 2.02 times the risk. Mesothelioma, 2 times the risk. Multiple myeloma, 1.5 times the risk. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, 1.5 times the risk. Skin cancer, 1.3 times the risk. Malignant melanomas, 1.3 times greater risk. Brain cancer, 1.3 times greater risk. Prostate cancer, 1.2. Colon cancer, 1.2. And leukemia. And a lot of this has to do with these toxins being absorbed through our skin while we're fighting these fires. A lot of training has come out within the fire departments to try and reduce our risk to these cancers, new programs to keep our turnout gear clean. You know, in years past, the dirtier your turnout gear, Jim, was, the more salty of a firefighter you were. It was a trademark, right. And now we're learning that that's not a good thing because even after the fire, all of those toxins and that soot that's sitting on your gear is still off-gassing every time you put it back on.
The thing is nowadays, the modern fire department, their clothing, their actual turnout gear is made specifically for an easy clean, keep clean process, as opposed to years ago in London we used to wear a Melton tunic. It was like a sponge. It would absorb everything along with the water that it also absorbed. The tunic would start out weighing approximately 2.25 pounds, and if it got soaked in water, it'd end up weighing 13.5 pounds. It just shows the absorption rate, and that stuff's stuck in your clothing and it's stuck around your body. So modern day firefighters' clothing is definitely an advancement, but it doesn't eliminate that process because it's still there. It's getting to your skin and you absorb it. Like you said, you do absorb it.
Absolutely, Jim. Absolutely.
And okay, and I just wanted to mention that, and one of the things we're supporting right now is that there is a Representative Cook out of Torrington, and we were actually working on this project when this happened serendipitously. But this is the season where legislation is being written in the state of Connecticut, and she wrote up an act, the act concerning funding for the firefighter cancer relief program. Okay, I mean, this so happens to just pop right out, and we want to support that. So I want to put it out there so that call your representatives and say, yeah, I want to support that particular bill. If and it's better just to go by the number of the bill. It's what's the number of the bill here?
HB 6384.
Yes, sir. And it got past the first hurdle. But call your representative if you live in the state of Connecticut and definitely endorse this and say support this. And this is a good first step. We would like to also, say that we are creating just to create an identity for it, and we came up with a name for it. It was the Firefighters Family Fund. And this is so that it's not an organization, it's not a 501c3, but what it is to give it a name. So we give it an identity, give it a sense of cause and a sense of purpose. The Firefighters Family Fund is going to be a collective of input from firefighters, from the local politicians, and the people putting on the concerts, which are going to be the same core group that is going to be doing the Night at the Prague shows, which is New England Pink Floyd, from the beginning and beyond, doing shows for the benefit of firefighters and the causes which firefighters would like to endorse. And they'll be different every single show we do. Starting at Seaside Park, though, we want to fully endorse this cause for cancer prevention, cancer awareness, and helping to support the families of the family of Scott. We like to support the family of Scott Johnson as far as our first show at the Seaside Park in Bridgeport. And New England Pink Floyd, Beyond, and the Emerson, Lake and Palmer group called From the Beginning will be doing Pink Floyd, Moody Blues, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer with a chamber ensemble with in a big open field on the ocean. And it should be a very memorable time with the incredible lighting, sound, and
food trucks, beer.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a true family experience. You know, like we talked about earlier, you know, think of a nice day or evening outside. You know, you could bring your family. You got great food out there. You got great music playing. You know, it's just going to be a great show.
And what are the chances, guys, about having the firefighters maybe help us out with a giant bonfire, maybe a couple fireworks?
Well, that could possibly work, but you might need to get a permit or two. But you know, talking about the firefighters side of things, obviously it's a thing very close to my heart, and I know it's definitely close to Sean's heart. A few years ago, we lost a couple of firefighters down in Bridgeport. You recall that?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was in a band at the time, and we done a charity concert for them in Warsaw Park, which is Ansonia, Connecticut, and it was very successful. Bikers by the God knows how many dozens turned out. We had 2 fire trucks there. We had the Stars and Stripes strung across the entrance. It was a very moving experience for me. I played a 35, 40-minute set, and I can't lie, I actually played most of the set in tears. Very close to my heart. I lost several colleagues in London, and as a result of that, I wrote a poem. I don't know if I'll be permitted to
Absolutely
to give this poem some airing time.
Right. Jim's a poet as well.
Let's hear it, Jim.
I do tend to dabble occasionally, and this truly came out of my brain in a matter of just minutes, believe it or not. I'm going to tell you, it's called the Firefighters Poem.
Close to the mic.
It's called the Firefighters Poem, and it goes like this. Your day begins, the fire bell rings, and hearts begin to race. You just don't know what's coming next, what dangers you may face. Along the way you steady yourself to face the urgent call. I must stay calm, steadfast be, please God, don't let me fall. At the scene, people calling, help me please, I'm here. Firemen looking, climbing ladders, searching, set aside their very own fears. People wonder, who are these folks who gave their all for others, to put themselves in danger's way, a special band of brothers. So when you next hear that siren sound and see those fire trucks rolling, give lots of thought for those that go to answer others' calling. And in God trust that all these good men will stay safe and come back home, not like the few that gave their all, the sad fate that falls to some. But if that's God's will, the chosen few are lost along the way, it's the great courage that keeps them going to serve another day. Please God, take care of their families, the ones they're left behind, for they too are a special breed. Better people you will never find.
Bravo!
That was great.
Jim.
Awesome, Jim. Awesome.
Tell me more about the firefighters that down in. Maybe we might want to restructure maybe how we're going to address what the cause we're going to be working with is. Maybe be inclusive of that as well.
If I could bring up one quick
Please.
statistic here, Wayne.
Okay. I interrupted your statistics.
No, that's
didn't I?
okay. That's okay. So I just found this very interesting. You know, a lot of people, you know, think about firefighters being killed in the line of duty, working at a fire, and this was very interesting. Cancer caused 61% of the career firefighter line of duty deaths from January 1st, 2002 to March 31st, 2017, according to data from the International Association of Firefighters. Heart disease caused 18% of career line of duty deaths for that same period. Cancer caused 70% of the line of duty deaths for career firefighters in 2016. So, you look at those statistics, and it's cancer is what's killing our firefighters nowadays, mostly.
Oh, Sean, I'll step in there. I'm not searching or looking for any kind of sympathies on this. I've been a smoker a good proportion of my life. A lot of firefighters do. Funnily enough, you come out of a fire and a lot of guys, the first thing they want is a cigarette. It helps them cough. It helps them clear their airways and their lungs of all the garbage that you've sucked in during a fire. I am actually a confirmed COPD mesothelioma case myself. So no cross to bear on that one, I'm afraid, because I've been a smoker as well. But I'm certain that somewhere along the way, firefighting did actually attribute at least some of that effect to my personal physical self. But like I say, and Sean is right, there is so many cases in this world, not just in America, not just in the UK, but through the entire world, where firefighters are falling foul to things like cancer, respiratory problems and such like, and they're dying as a result of it. And they leave behind families, young children. They all require some kind of assistance.
And you know what? It's very interesting. And let's talk about this for a second. Building codes, which I know a little bit about. I've been a builder for a little while in my past. I don't like to admit it. But when it comes to renovations, look at all the regulations and all the care put towards lead paint and asbestos removal. And you can't go in here, or you need to have a special suit in order to chip paint so that then you have to have a special collection unit and this and that. In order to be able to remove asbestos and lead paint and other toxins that are in old buildings and old warehouses, and not to mention the fact that a lot of these floors in these old factory buildings have been saturated by an entire cocktail of chemicals over the early part of the Industrial Revolution. And so you have to pull these permits and special considerations and hazmat suits and everything else. But as soon as it goes up in flames, all that's out the window. Right. All these guys are running in there and trying to put this thing out. And meanwhile, before, it was just sitting there, slowly disintegrating into the atmosphere, or gravity pulling it further down into the soil. Whereas now it's now been vaporized on a molecular level, and these guys are running in and trying to put out a fire. Nobody is putting out any. The fact that you even have to have legislation to be able to bring awareness to fireman's cancer is ridiculous. Because on one side, you're so careful and you're aware of those things being there. And on the other side, as soon as it goes up in flames and goes molecular, these gentlemen are forced to not forced, are very willing to, but are by their duty, having to run in and having to put out a fire, but totally be exposed and at such an intolerable level to these same toxins.
Well, Wayne, to pick up on that, an incident back in the day, in England, we used to use what was called a proto-oxygen breathing apparatus set before the compressed air sets come in. And we went into an environment that was actually so toxic with acid that they were wearing these India rubber goggles, which was part of the rig, and they were dissolving with what was in the atmosphere, in the smoke. Now, you imagine that if that's doing that to India rubber surrounded goggles that you put on your face, what's it doing to your body generally?
In your sweat pores.
Exactly.
I mean, so by all means, right, support this bill. And I know this is a very timely thing because a lot of people are going to hear this podcast long after it's either been passed, but I'm sure it's going to be passed. But at the same time, if it needs to happen in more states and across the country, by all means, remember this and present it forward. Jim, tell me more about these firefighters in Bridgeport, and let's help me to this woman who lost her husband, Scott Johnson, and she is a trooper. She's been pretty much making this happen year after year after year, and here is a couple stories that bring about what the Firefighters Family Fund wants to not only bring awareness to, but rather than just bring awareness to something, we actually like to do something about it. Let's get some money in the hands of the people who need it, and let the Firefighters Family Fund also make a decision on maybe helping other first responders, Jim, as you were saying earlier.
Great. Yes, Wayne. I think the thing that was most predominant about the fact that it's the guys who lost their lives in Bridgeport, it was just a house fire. I mean, people look at it and go, "Oh, it's just another house." It's a completely common thing to happen. The construction of the houses in the US, unlike the UK, most of them are made of lumber, and they've got combustible materials that act as siding, etc. And they do tend to burn very quick. But those officers that lost their lives down in Bridgeport, it was almost like it was unnecessary. I don't believe the building was occupied, from what I was led to believe anyway. And at the end of the day, they were just trying to save the property and the people's possessions within. And these poor guys died. I mean, what can you do to prevent that? Nothing. It's their duty. It's what they do. They choose to do that duty. Can you do something after that? Yes. They're going to leave people behind. And that's where the story lies. Those that are left behind really do need to be considered and taken care of. So Sean's got certainly got information on the latest person that we've been talking about. I believe his name was
Scott Johnson.
Scott Johnson, yes.
That's almost like a secondary thing whereby he's contracted a problem with his health, and it's no doubt it's definitely service related.
Could it be argued that more firefighters die of cancer than they do of the actual job risks of firefighting?
It could be argued that, yeah, especially regarding the statistics that I read a couple of minutes ago.
Especially after 911.
And after 9/11, there's still firefighters dying from things that they were exposed to at the scene of 9/11. So yeah, a lot of it is exposure to different toxins. That's what's killing a lot of our firefighters.
So we're gonna be helping out both Bridgeport and New Britain firefighters and their families, and this will be New England Pink Floyd from the beginning and beyond. The tribute to Pink Floyd from Emerson, Lake and Palmer and the Moody Blues, doing a big outdoor show, big sound, big lights, with the Pink and Blue Chamber Ensemble. And that'll be at Seaside Park at a date to be set. Obviously, there's a few things we have to get done, but here's the thing: we are doing a crowdfunding on this. So we would like to be able to run pre-sales so that we can get the show set up, and we want to do a big show, famous show, an awesome show. Not only to be a spectacle and be something truly memorable, an incredible family exposition of progressive rock music. That who wouldn't like Pink Floyd, Moody Blues, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer? I mean, this is going to be something to remember, and done in such a way that you've never heard before. In such a way where we actually have orchestrations going on with the actual songs that you remember, and it's never been done like this to this level. Yes, you've seen Moody Blues with the orchestras. Yes, you've seen perhaps on YouTube chamber ensembles doing the music of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Pink Floyd. But now you'll see it live, and you'll see it all together, and you'll see it in a cohesive show, and it's gonna rock. It's going to rock. The show is going to rock, and the light show is going to be spectacular.
Yeah, Wayne, why don't you tell them a little bit about what you do with the graphics that are going to be projected?
Oh, well, here's the thing. I'm a little overboard with the visual spectacle as our we have two gentlemen, Kevin A and Kevin B. Actually, it's Kevin Nixon and Kevin Brogel, and we have two genius lighting dezyners and sound designers. Who are going to be working these shows, all the shows, including the Night at the Prague shows, which is the creme de la creme. But we are going to be doing these outdoors. It's a little bit of an adjustment because outdoors always is a challenge. But we have the projection mapping, big lights, big sound, special effects, and we're hoping on the outdoor shows, with the help of the firefighters, that we'll be able to throw up a few nice fireworks during the end of some of the more epic tunes. And at the end of everything, I always looked forward to the bonfires. I always had a great time at the firefighter shows that we've done. where we had a bonfire. I've been doing shows in Mesquamaket Beach. We did Guy Fawkes every single year, which the firefighters loved because they could make this gigantic bonfire. And there's nothing better there's nothing better than bringing our entire society together to huddle around a giant bonfire in November. I mean, it's very medieval somehow, and we love it, and we've always done it. The first show New England Pink Floyd ever did was we did a performance of "Shine On You Crazy Diamond," which is on YouTube at Mesquamaket Beach at Guy Fawkes Day. So we have a long track record of being able to put on these big shows. We did the music festivals in Mesquamaket Beach and elsewhere. I've done L.A. and so this is taking everything our collective talents have put together. Sean's talents, Kevin Nix's talents, and mine, and then we mixed musical attributes of Jerry, Jim, and the entire cast of musicians and talent that is, and not to mention the let's not forget the sound engineers and lighting engineers, Sean, and as we move to do this spectacular show in the arenas of benefiting families of firefighters and the first responders that the Firefighters Family Fund would wish to also share this opportunity with. And you might want to make a comment on that, Jim.
Yeah, firefighters are basically first responders, but hand in glove with those go the police, and certainly hand in glove with a lot of fire departments, there goes the EMS crews. They're all first responders, and they're all very responsible and very dedicated people. If we excluded any of those groups from that elevation to the level of receiving funds and benefits from what we're doing, it would be a wrongful act. What we're going to do is we're going to basically look at the whole picture, the whole thing, generally across the board, and certainly those first responders and various groups of a kind will definitely benefit.
And I'd like to also mention, Sean, as much as we're all creative and have great ideas, but we us guys in production and artists and musicians, we can't even comprehend the depth of where these funds and some of the empathies and things should go. So we rely heavily on the members of our party who are firefighters and those we know who are firefighters to really direct us in that regard.
Yeah, it's interesting how it came together, because early on we were talking about, we should do this, we should support something, and we weren't exactly sure what it would be in the very beginning. And then Jim came along, and it just naturally all came together. It's really cool. And then Sean. And it just seemed like, wow, this was meant to be.
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much we had any doubt about it. It's just that we were inspired by Aaron Lewis, who came up with this community type of fund idea where he would do shows that the communities could actually benefit from. And what's more community? In a sense, it was like Aaron Lewis was starting to do this. He was of the band Stained. I don't know if you know that, but it's like, that's really honorable. And I remember thinking to myself, that's really something else. I appreciate that. And then thinking about it a little bit more, what is more community than your fire department? What is more community than they're in every community. I mean, and not just as paid public servants, but also volunteer firefighters.
The thing is, Wayne, firemen, invariably firefighters in general in communities are the community as well. They live and breathe the same air as everybody else in the town and the area.
Yeah, you can't say that about Congress people mostly.
No, you can't, but certainly firefighters, they actually live that environment. And so they are, in essence, they are the community.
Absolutely, and as well as the police department, and the first responders. I mean, you're sending ambulances into places. I mean, there was a shooting. You're sending ambulances into places where there was just a shooting.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, Wayne, is firefighters don't just fight fires. We have other hazards of the job as well, like you had just mentioned. A lot of firefighters respond to medical calls as well. So we're being sent to these incidents where there's a shooting, there's a stabbing, even sometimes getting there before the ambulances and possibly even before the police department sometimes. So, there's other hazards involved other than just fighting fires.
Big question now. The firefighters like Pink Floyd, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and the Moody Blues?
Well, I know there's two of them right here that definitely do, so I can speak for those two, and I'm sure a lot of the other ones do as well.
I'd have a question related to bears, but I don't really want to say it on air. But does
Please.
a bear do a certain thing in the woods? I mean, you asked him, do we like Pink Floyd? Does a bear actually use the woods as a bathroom?
Okay. I know a pope that feels the same way.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, I think it's cool for prog music to step up and to be doing something like this, and I think maybe it'll there'll be other people who'll be doing similar things for things that they feel strongly about. But I'm glad to be part of this.
Well, let's hope that we actually set the tide in rolling in the right direction for this thing and become the forerunners in what we're doing.
and this thing, as Jim refers to it, is New England Pink Floyd from the beginning, which is the Emerson, Lake and Palmer group, and beyond, which is a group that does a tribute to the Moody Blues, all together to do these big outdoor shows with this incredible. I mean, you've never seen anything like this. You're not going to see anything like this. And for as we announce right now the existence,
Come and see the show.
come and see the show. Go ahead, give us a couple lines of it, huh?
I won't talk about the strippers in the tills.
It's a
We'll leave that out
dynamo.
because it's a family show.
Yes, here's the thing. We are. This is an announcement towards making the towards the crowdfunding of the Firefighters Family Fund presents New England Pink Floyd from the beginning and beyond. First date, introduction right at Seaside Park. Hopefully, it's going to be at other venues. We have some other venues we're taking a look at. We're looking at Musqueamicut Beach, Rhode Island, their state beach. We used to do concerts there with Caswell Cook, who did some great shows there in the past with us. And we also thinking of the Fort Town Fairgrounds. Why not? And if you actually look at the map and you draw a line from each one, it makes a perfect triangle. So
Hey, what about the Big E Fair?
now, hey, you know what? There's no
That's,
stopping this machine.
That's a machine that may well roll into operation at some point.
That's a machine, yes, and not to mention the fact that we think that we're going to bring in people from all over to witness this.
It's not just going to be Connecticut. It's going to be Massachusetts, Rhode Island. You're going to pull people in from down into New York, even round to Long Island.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've already spoken to people from Long Island and
Yeah, there's a
top side of New Jersey.
hotbed of prog
There is a
aficionados
Yes,
in Long Island
there
and
really
in
is.
northern Jersey.
And I've spoken to a few of them online, and they've said, just let us know, give us the dates, we'll be there.
So camper rentals and are gonna
yeah.
spike.
Campers, B&B as they call it, bed and breakfast, such like. Yeah, we should do.
Geez, I saw John Anderson from Yes. He does a solo thing that's really cool because he wrote pretty much all the music for Yes, and it was astounding to see how many people were coming in on walkers and canes and on oxygen. It was like, oh boy,
absolutely. Yeah.
getting old here.
I know. Well, you know what though? I'm seeing they always bring the young kids, and they always bring their. I mean, I see the boomers with their Gen X sons, and then their millennial grandkids, and then of course the occasional Gen Zs, but they're there. I mean, your son is a Gen Z.
Here's the great thing about this too. You talk about that. You're going to be bringing in all of the baby boomers and all of the older folks who grew up listening to Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Pink Floyd and the Moody Blues, and they're going to be bringing their families. They're going to be bringing their kids out to these shows, and these kids are going to see these younger musicians up on the stage playing in these bands as well, and maybe that'll inspire them as well. So.
And they're going to love the music because it's presented in a really, really cool way. Hey, cool is cool, right?
At any age.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to say that.
So before we go, and I did want to make this, I wanted to mention this again. Currently, there is a bill out, and there is a bill out right now in the state of Connecticut that is bringing back screening and treatment for the firefighters to be able to offset their increased rate of contracting cancer. Is that the right term? Contracting cancer?
Well, yeah, it is in a sense. Yeah.
Well, please correct me. I'm.
You don't actually contract cancer. It's something that the body does as a result of absorption of bad materials that just don't mix with human flesh and
Exposure to
anatomy.
toxins.
Dr. Jim.
Exposure.
Yes, thank you, Doctor.
It's an exposure to toxins the body shouldn't take. We're looking at HB 6384. Talk to your representatives. Get them to follow this bill. Get them to work with this bill. Get them to agree this bill. It's so important that number should be imprinted on your brains. HB 6384. It's being introduced by Representative Cook. It needs acceptance. It needs a following. It needs some body behind it. So get your bodies behind it now. It's so important, and it's so needed, because it's something that firefighters don't need to have to face in their life.
They shouldn't even have to ask for it.
And you know what's so cool about this too is you have two firefighters on the crew here for this show, and we're representing not only the United States, but we're also representing internationally firefighters
Yes,
with Jim here.
Absolutely, Sean. Yeah, well, it's like I said before, it's a brotherhood. It goes worldwide. It doesn't just extend across the pond to England from the US or vice versa. I had guys that I spoke to that perished in 9/11. Very sad, and I was in public, and I stood down there at the memorial, saw their names, and I shed my tears in public. Two great guys I used to speak to online. That was a different story, but certainly there's offshoot from that. All these poor guys who actually went to 911 and the Twin Towers, and now they're going down with cancers of all different descriptions. And not just them, all first responders, all people that were there that suffered that terrible fate that day. And as a result of that, this bill will address a great deal of that from firefighters' point of view, certainly, but there's no reason why it couldn't extend to all first responders, because it is basically something that all first responders are likely to get subjected to. You agree that, Sean?
Oh, I agree. You didn't have only firefighters working the scene at 9/11. There were police officers. There were emergency medical personnel that were working down there, transit police. There were a lot of different first responders working that scene. And, all of those personnel were exposed to the same things. So,
Yeah, if you breathe that stuff in that was floating around in the atmosphere, yeah, you couldn't avoid it. And like Sean says, it's not just firefighters, it's not just fire officers, it's not just police officers. There's so many other people. Transit police, because the railway was involved right underneath the towers there. There was Dockland police involved with it. All kinds of problems existed now among all those groups. So we package the whole thing. First responders is people that put their self on the line. An old adage in London used to be, firemen are crazy because they're rushing in when everyone else is rushing out. And that applies, and it's a truth that applies to everybody who responds to an emergency where the public need our help. And as a result of that, they suffer these indignities of these bad health problems that can't be stopped, but it needs to be addressed. And the least we can do is work towards at least some kind of retribution in respect of they get the right service for their service.
And if we could ask, obviously we have to. We're entertainers, and we are creating an art form, but we're also creating an opportunity for the community and creating memories. And we're creating beautiful music, awesome music, rocking music, and spectacles for people to remember, memories for everybody. But if you were to let's get down into the real thought process here. What would the firefighters want? The firefighters that lost their lives, and what would they want? They know their wives or their widows are continuing the fight. They would almost expect that to be the case too, but they would want their sons and their daughters to have a better life, to go to college and this and that. One of the things that we want to do is that not just doing this for awareness, but be able to maybe contribute to food bank or their college funds of their kids and things like that. I think they would appreciate that more than anything. And I think that that's going to be one of the discussions that we have when we take each particular show, take each particular case, and figure out how we're going to benefit that community when it comes to and it makes it very individual too. When we play this town, it's not so well. It's just going into this fund. It's going into this collection. No, it's going in something very specific to that town or to a case that's pertinent during that time, and that becomes so it's very identifiable. You can imagine how it's benefiting a particular individual, and it may not show itself at that time. A college fund is not going to show itself for many years, but it's the thought of it. And if you're talking to the dad or mom that lost their life either to cancer or to the job itself, imagine the gratitude that would come from knowing that, if they could know that, and they may know that, and the widow or the widower would know that. So I'm really looking forward to working with all you guys and putting on a great show, New England Pink Floyd and Beyond, at their very first show at the Firefighters Family Fun at the Seaside Park in Bridgeport, and this is be one of many. And on that, I would like to thank everybody to come, and also for everybody for listening in here. But also, I'd like to put my number out there, because I'm not going to be shy about this. If you want to support this, if you want to give your opinion, if you want to help out in any way, my cell phone number is 860-701-8442. I want to hear from you. If you feel like more you want to send an email, well, just text me at that number or your email address, and I would love to correspond with you. But cell number is 860-701-8442. It's my personal cell number. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's get this done. And by all means, help support that bill that's right now in Hartford. So, guys, thank you very much. Give it final thoughts.
Yeah, just help us make this a reality.
Absolutely. It's a great cause. There's going to be a lot of great music. It's going to be fun. And let's do this. Let's have some fun with this.
Absolutely. I agree thoroughly. Let's get it done. Let's do this.
He needs to get this done.
I need to get it done. I'm getting old, Wayne. I need to get it done before the body stops doing.
Yeah, we don't want to say how much experience we have if we add up all our years playing. It's scary.
No. Well, actually, I don't know if radio would allow that anyway.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for listening in, and we'll catch you at Seaside Park. Brad? Yeah. Hey, man. I think we've run the gambit.